What is the biggest thing standing between you and the life that you want isn't your boss. It isn't your upbringing. It isn't your age. It isn't your education. It isn't even your circumstances. What if one of the biggest obstacles is the story that you've been telling yourself about who you are? I'm not talented enough. I'm too old. I don't have the right connections. I've already missed my opportunity. I'm just not the kind of person. Those thoughts may sound harmless, but repeating them long enough, and eventually they become the boundaries of your life. Today, we're talking about a book with a provocative title, but a powerful message. You are a badass. How to Stop Downing Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life by Jen Sincero. And underneath the humor and colorful language is a question every purposeful individual should consider. What could your life look like if you finally stop getting in your own way? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Purposeful Man. This is a place where we talk about faith, growth, leadership, health, family, and becoming the person God has called us to be. And today's book is about something that affects almost every area of our lives, the way we think about ourselves. Now, I don't agree with every idea presented in this book, particularly some of its language about the universe and spirituality, but there are several principles that I believe are worth examining. So, here are 5 lessons from You Are a Badass that can help us live more intentionally. Lesson number 1: your beliefs shape your behavior. One of Sincero's biggest ideas is that many of us are living according to beliefs we didn't consciously choose. Some came from childhood, some came from failure, some came from things people said about us, and eventually those messages became part of our identity. Maybe somewhere along the way, you started believing, I'm not smart, I'm terrible with money, I'm not a leader, I'm not disciplined, I'm never going to change. Here's the problem: when you believe something about yourself, you begin making decisions that reinforce that belief. You stop raising your hand. You stop trying. You stop taking risks. And eventually you say, see, I knew I couldn't do it. But maybe the problem wasn't your ability. Maybe the problem was the belief that you accepted whatever was said about you before you even tried. Purpose requires us to examine the stories we tell ourselves. So ask yourself, what belief about myself have I been treating as fact when it may only be a story? Lesson number 2: stop living for everyone else's approval. Another major lesson in this book is learning to stop allowing other people's opinions to control your life. And this is difficult because we all want acceptance. We want people to approve of our decisions, our careers, our appearance, our parenting, our dreams, even our success. But if you need everyone's approval before moving forward, you'll spend your life standing still. I've learned something over the years. Any meaningful decision will eventually disappoint somebody. Leadership teaches you that. Parenthood teaches you that. Life teaches you that. The goal isn't to become arrogant or ignore wise counsel. There is tremendous value in listening to people who love us and have earned the right to speak into our lives. But there's a difference between receiving wisdom and surrendering your life to other people's expectations. Sometimes purpose requires the courage to say, I appreciate your opinion, but this is a road I believe I need to walk. Now, I can attest to this because, as it happened to me as a young man when I was considering joining the military, I grew up in a very conservative church, and they didn't believe that Christians should serve in the military because there is one commandment in the Bible that says, Thou shalt not kill. So I caught a lot of backlash for my decision to join the Air Force in 1996, but was surprised to see a complete 180-degree reversal following the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Lesson number 3: action creates confidence. This may be my favorite lesson from the book. We often think we need confidence before we take action, but frequently it works the other way around. Action builds confidence. Think about something you've become good at. Were you confident the first time? Probably not. You became confident because you did it. Then you did it again and again. You failed, you learned, you adjusted, and eventually what once felt uncomfortable became familiar to you. That's why waiting until you feel ready can be dangerous. You may never feel completely ready. Starting this channel is a good example. I had to put away all my doubts and take the leap of faith. You see, you can spend forever thinking about what the perfect camera is, what the perfect script, the perfect background, or whether anyone will even watch. Eventually, you simply have to hit record. And that principle applies to almost anything: starting a business, applying for a position, having a conversation, taking a class, going to the gym, writing that first page. You don't need to see the entire staircase to take the next step. Remember, life is a marathon, not a sprint. Lesson number 4: your habits have to match your goals. Here's where personal development gets uncomfortable. We love goals, but goals are exciting. Habits are repetitive. Everyone wants the result. Fewer people want the routine required to produce the result. You can say you want better health, but what do your daily choices say? You can say your family is your priority, but where does your time go? You can say you want financial freedom, but what do your spending habits reveal? You can say you want to grow spiritually, but how much time are you actually investing in your faith? Our intentions matter, but eventually our calendar, our habits, and decisions tell the truth about what our priorities really are. So instead of asking only, what do I want? Ask the more powerful question: what kind of person would I need to become to achieve it? Then begin practicing the habits of that person today. Lesson number 5: you are responsible for what you do next. This is where I think the message becomes especially powerful. We don't control everything that happens to us. Life can be unfair, and yes, people can hurt us. Opportunities do disappear. Health changes as we grow older. Plans fall apart. Doors close. Sometimes circumstances really are beyond our control. But there's still one question we get to answer: what am I going to do next? Responsibility doesn't mean that you pretend difficult things didn't happen. It means refusing to give those things permanent control over your future. There is an enormous difference between saying, "This happened to me," and saying, "Because this happened to me, my life can never move forward." One acknowledges the reality, the other gives reality permanent authority over your future. Your past may explain parts of your story, but it doesn't have to write the final chapter. And here's a fate perspective, and one thing that I would like to add to Sincero's message. The book talks frequently about believing in yourself and tapping into the universe. As a Christian, I see that a little bit differently. I don't believe my ultimate confidence comes from believing that I am powerful enough to create whatever reality I want. Although there is a component of truth to believing in yourself and actioning on items that you want to get done and being most likely successful in the long term. But my confidence comes from knowing who I belong to and what I have been entrusted with, and that my life has a purpose beyond myself. Philippians 4:13 says, "I can do all things through him who strengthens me." Now notice the source of the strength. It isn't simply believing harder in yourself. It's move forward knowing you aren't walking alone. There is absolutely a place for confidence. There is a place for ambition in our lives. And there is a place for dreaming bigger dreams. But confidence without humility can become arrogance. And ambition without character can become selfishness. And success without purpose can leave us wondering why achieving everything still wasn't enough. For the purposeful man, the goal isn't simply becoming more successful. It's becoming more faithful with the abilities, the opportunities, and influence that we've been given. So here's my challenge for you this week. Identify one area of your life where you've been getting in your own way. Maybe you've been procrastinating. Maybe you've been afraid of failure. Maybe you're waiting for someone else's approval. Maybe you've convinced yourself that you're too old, too inexperienced, or simply not capable. Write that belief down. Then ask yourself, is this actually true? And then do something even more important. Take one action that proves you're no longer willing to live according to it. Not 10 things, but one. Because a purposeful life isn't built through one enormous decision, it's built through thousands of small, courageous ones. So, in closing, You Are a Badass may have a provocative title, but underneath, it is a valuable reminder. Stop underestimating what your life can become. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop allowing your fear to make your decisions. And stop confusing where you've been with where you're capable of going. You have gifts, you have opportunities, you have responsibilities, and you still have time to grow. The question is, what are you going to do with them? If this message encouraged you, share it with someone who may need to hear it and subscribe as we continue learning how to live with greater purpose and intentionality. Until next time, stay grounded in faith, keep growing intentionally, and continue becoming the person God has called you to be.